Wow, howdy, folks. Welcome to the Holler and Appalachian Apocalypse Kickstarter launch day celebration. Thank you guys so much. It's amazing. It's already funded. There are 200 and almost 80 backers, almost 33,000. Thank you guys so much. That's an amazing start to a great Kickstarter. So congratulations, Tim, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Everybody at Pinnacle's been working really hard. It's amazing to see what it takes to put one of these things on, and just all the details, and it's just been really cool to witness from behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's no joke. So I think to start out, because people are still trickling in, I want to take a point of privilege. I knew Tim before it wasn't before he was cool. He's always been cool. But I think I'm one of the first people to meet you. Because it was kind of you came to Colorado. We've got the big Rocky Mountain Savages group here, and so Holler was just an idea back then, before you even met Shane and Pinnacle and all that stuff. So I've had a unique perspective seeing you bring this to fruition, and that's amazing. It's just great seeing you bring this to fruition.
Right, yeah, you've been watching it for 2 years. I think I wrote the first words on it in April of 2019, and we met shortly after that. And yeah, you've been instrumental in bringing it to this point too.
Sure. I mean, I had an idea back then that it was something special, right? I mean, I think this is a unique property in the industry, in the role-playing tabletop game industry. There's nothing really quite like it. And so yeah, I'm thrilled we got you hooked up with Carl, who did a great, amazing job on the initial kind of the look for it. And it's changed a little bit since then. I mean, I'm in love with that red and black kind of just pure horror messaging. But the game's evolved. So why don't you and Tracy let us fill us in on how has the game evolved? What are the new art is very different and a new kind of take. So tell us about that. Tell us about the art and what the new vision is for Holler.
Okay. Do you want to start talking about the evolution, Tracy, and then I can chime in?
Sure. So I was brought in by Shane after he had made the agreement with Tim to bring the setting into the Pinnacle fold, right? And he asked me to help develop the setting for Savage Worlds, because Tim is not as versed in the Savage Worlds rule system as some of the others. And so Shane asked me to help. And so I sort of came on for that purpose. So Tim gave me the manuscript, which was sort of raw, and we had it put in, and Carl did a lot of the work for the graphic design stuff. We did a quick start way early on that had its own sort of graphic representation, right? And it did it in a really, like, it was kind of like, this is the first attempt at Holler. And as I went through it and started reading it and started sort of like, okay, what feedback do I want to give Tim here in terms of bringing this into sort of into the rules of Savage Worlds, yes, but also into the culture of Savage Worlds, right? Which is part of it, like it is. And so I didn't dictate anything. I really just asked him questions. I asked him questions about what he thought about this or that. And then a couple of things where I'm like, wow, this is this way. Is that what you want? Or because this is how it's going to translate into play, right? And then we had these discussions, and so I started to edit the manuscript and come up with ideas for Tim about rule stuff, and then eventually, once I got through that, I put it into InDesign and started doing the layout for it. And how it's evolved is it took us a little while to get the art nailed down. Like, we tried a couple of different artists, and we ended up finding Francesco, and that's how you pronounce it, right? And he is fantastic. He's done the entire book from cover to cover, and every piece of art is his. And it's amazing art, and he does it quickly, and he gets it. Like, when Tim gives him an art order, we get back these roughs that are just great. And so he's really helped define what Holler has become, in conjunction with the sort of changes that we made to the manuscript to bring it into. I want to leave that to Tim to describe what it's become, because it's not my purview really, but it definitely has my fingerprints all over it, for good, for better or worse, right?
Well, yeah, I think initially the first draft of the manuscript, it was much more of a doom-soaked vision of the Holler. It pressed social realism uh, a little more heavily, and when we would play it at the table, we were confronting sort of these issues, these labor issues, these social issues, poverty, just some of the grimmer aspects of the setting. But we were having a fabulous time doing it, and so I wanted to create a tone and a sort of tonal latitude with Holler, where you can go in and be as gritty and as horror driven and as post-apocalyptic and survival based as you want. The setting gives you sort of every tool to the GM, every tool to punish his or her players if they choose to do so and make their lives absolutely miserable and play it as close to the bone as possible. But when we were playing it, we were having so much fun inhabiting the characters, and they just sort of naturally give themselves to like pulp action and daring feats, and they're taking everyday people and sort of ennobling them and making them the heroes of the setting, right? Everyday workers. And so we wanted, and there's something very powerful and awesome and cool about that. So we wanted that sort of uplifting tone to be able to come in at times too. So now I think still horror elements, a lot of horror elements. There's more pulp action. I think it has more heart now. I think, there's this huge sort of like the big boys are these robber baron industrialists who represent, this really sort of like giggling maniacal kind of evil, right? And they have different, and they have different sort of purviews among them. Like one's sort of a mad scientist inventor. One is just like the stereotypical no nonsense boss. There are like European dandies among them. There's one, Eloise Bondurant, who thinks she's actually doing good for the people of the Holler by coming and doing the things she's doing.
She's got her foundations, and she's got things.
Yeah, her Good Works foundations.
Her Good Works foundations, yes.
So you're fighting against
good
this,
intentions in the road to hell, right?
This evil that appears monolithic at first, but it's not completely monolithic. There's a lot of variety and texture, and so that was sort of a cool thing to do too. Like the big boys are humanized a little bit more too than they were in the beginning. So there's some potential, to change them as well as your character evolves. But yeah, just more away from like grim post-apocalyptic grunge to more bright, colorful, mystical, but with still the horror elements, right? And I'm fascinated with Appalachian folklore and fairy tale, and that stuff kept coming in and popping its head up. And there's so much like folk humor and wisdom contained in those scenarios that it's a shame not to just embrace it and go there, right? When the opportunity arises. So I think it has much more tonal range now, and that a GM could run it as gritty post-apocalyptic or like extreme pulp action. I saw a couple of posts on the forums about Barney Fife as Nosferatu, right? Which I thought was brilliant. And then another post,
I saw that.
Someone talking about doing a Dukes of Hazzard. And I want all that stuff to be on the table, right? If you want to do Cormac McCarthy's The Road, you can. If you want to do the Dukes of Hazzard, you can. And I really believe the setting gives you all the tools to do those different tones well. Yeah,
and I'll have stuff to say too. But Chris, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that it's eminently more playable now, right? Not that it wasn't playable before, but the types of stories you can tell are broader, and the lengths of campaigns you can run are longer. Because I think horror is great, and there's a lack of good horror games out there, and I think Holler definitely has all the bones there and the meat that you can really get into that. But horror games are kind of time limited, right? I mean, if you think of the horror genre in film and in books, they're very much set pieces, and that doesn't give a lot of room. And I do that, but the fact you have so much of that interesting the fairy tale and folklore stuff. It also makes the kind of archetypes you can play much more diverse, right? The kind of, I mean, Percy Ray Bunch, right? Like, tell us about Percy. But I think he's your favorite. I mean, that's my impression from a distance.
Yeah,
right?
we should
You wouldn't want to throw
Justice's
Percy into a pure horror, right? Like,
yeah, he would be devoured very, very quickly by like the darker forces. You know, if it was an completely unforgiving horror setting. Yeah, Percy Ray Bunch, and I'll let Tracy and Jess talk about Percy because they've had to deal with him. I just am Percy, and they have to deal with Percy, right? It's two different things. But he's sort of a curious youth archetype. And the Appalachian Jack tales have always fascinated me. And the central figure, Jack, he's usually young. He succeeds out of dumb luck most of the time, but every once in a while he shows that the dumb luck almost turns into a sort of ingenuity or wisdom, and he comes out on top when he absolutely shouldn't. And so I wanted to take that and sort of work it into an archetype. And so Percy Ray Bunch is sort of a combination of Jack and the Jack tales, and then like adolescent like sidekicks, like the little kid in Sling Blade. I don't know if y'all remember that film.
Oh yeah.
Right. And like they're just like wise beyond their years, like they've seen some stuff. And they're sort of plucky and curious and brave. And so I wanted to bring those things together and also combine with this kid I knew who just like was, you know, cursed all the time by the age of 6 and just was like smarter than all the adults and was just like had this energy, this irrepressible energy. And you wanted to just make him stop. But at the same time, there was something like, wow, he really has a lot of energy, right? And like, so yeah, I was thinking all those things with the Curious Youth archetype and Percy Ray Bunch. And so he has a lucky horseshoe. He has a cap gun, you know, so not a lot of offensive capacity. So he has to survive by, you know, smarts, wit, guile, luck. But I'll hush for a minute now and let Tracy.
Yeah, and part of that, like you talk about the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, the new edition of Savage Worlds, makes a character like that even more viable than it was before, right? Because testing and all those things, all those options out there now, allow you as the Curious Youth to do more things in support of other characters who, like the miner, who's all brawn and all, you know, pickaxe, right? But in response to the horror and dialing it in for Holler, and because we did have some people with questions on the Savage Worlds official Facebook page about, you know, well, I'm surprised because I saw the old horror cover and I thought, you know, that fit the tone, and now we've got this and it's a little different. But what I want to mention is, like, the bestiary alone, especially if we get into the, and we probably already unlocked, you know, the 16 more pages for the book that unlocks some of those bestiary entries. Yep. You go into that bestiary and it's a scary, scary place. Like, it does not mess around. We've got demons from the infernal spheres. Is that what it is, Tim?
Inner spheres, outer spheres, and
outer
natural worlds.
Spheres and
like
natural
three
world.
Different categories.
Some of those are scary, scary things, and they alone offer amazing hooks for a GM to start messing and making an adventure just built around one of them. And they're a handful by themselves. You can engage with those or you cannot. You can engage with some of these really scary cryptids and haints out there, or you can sort of brush over them. It really depends on how you want to run Holler, because Holler can be run as sort of a centralized to labor conflict, or it can be really heavy into the cryptids, haints, and demons, and all those sort of folk elements that Tim has just brilliantly interweaved into all this stuff. Or you can do a combination of both. So those things are all in there. And that's what makes us so happy with it. I feel like is that tone can be shifted depending on how you want to play it, and all in the context of this amazing sort of setting with this feel that only Tim could have brought to it. Right? You just read some of these entries in the Gazetteer, and it's just so evocative of the characters that inhabit this place and the things that go on here. And it's unique And it's like I say, it sort of brings to mind that Appalachian folklore and that Appalachian history, while at the same time bringing out a game, like Chris said, that you can actually play and have fun playing and do it in a way that sort of suits you and your group. I think that's my take on it, and that's why I'm so excited to have everybody see it, because what Tim has made is so good. It's so good. But Jess, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts. Well, when we play tested it the first time, I think it was pretty grungy, that first run through. But we, as players, brought so much little fun, little curious things that I kind of think we pushed it a little bit towards, oh, we do want to have these fun things. Percy was just this little kid who was just making a stir, and we decided, hey, Percy, why don't you come with us? Why don't you come and venture with us? We're going to save your family. We're going to like give you this new life. And so Percy Ray became a thing. And that's really cool to have that kid come in and just be this inspiring light and now just be like an archetype. So that's pretty cool. And, and Eloise, that's my boo. I played Minnie May and she ended up falling in love with Eloise.
Oh, no, that was LMA Hawkins.
Oh, LMA Hawkins. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. It's been like 6 months, but, so we had love in our story. We had all like friendships and all sorts of things. So I think that we pushed it a little bit towards that creative light. And we're going to start doing some more play testing, and I can't wait to see how it's changed a little bit.
And what I love is you guys have really captured so much of, what I know of the mountain people. Okay. So like I'm in North Carolina, and Clint's family is what they call mountain people. In fact, we've come up with a patented edge just for our family that's called mountain blood, and everybody has it except for Jody, and that is the ability to tolerate colder temperatures than I can. But but with their mountain blood, I mean, like these people, and I just know it from Clint's family and from the other people that we've met from journeying up to the Appalachians and spending time up there. It's just gorgeous. If you've never been there, it's just gorgeous. If I could sum up what the spirit of the Appalachian people is, I'd say scrappy. They are not content. They are changers. They are, you can say that it is heartbreaking poverty. It is. There is just that. But it doesn't mean that it breaks their spirit. And they will tell you all day long about their praises and what's good in their lives and what they're doing to change their luck, and some of the stories that I've had passed down, I'm seeing so many echoes of that in this setting, and I can't wait to play. I haven't had a chance to play yet. Y'all with the playtesting team, I'm so jealous. I'm just so jealous. And I can't tell if I want to be, a lumberjack out in the forest or a gouger or, or old granny woman, it's like, I want to be something, but there's so many options in there that really called to me. And then of course, when you say like the myth and the folklore, we've got like the Brown Mountain Lights and the Devil's Tromping Ground, which Tim and I have talked about on Facebook a little bit. Needs a devil's walking stick. If you've not seen that plant, oh my gosh, it's a real thing. There's real stuff that we get to pull from. It doesn't all have to be, just mythology. And like even the music that I've been able to sing with, the different groups that I do. And I know Tracy loves to sing too. So, black is the color of my true love's hair. And I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger and that kind of thing. These tales of like love and loss, but they focus on the love first. It's always got that kind of minor tonality to it almost. And then of course there's the murder ballads. We've got so much to draw on, y'all. So much. I just can't wait to see it all. And you're packaging it all together in this neat little setting for the people, especially overseas. If you are not familiar with the setting, you're not familiar with Appalachia, maybe you're in one of our friends from Brazil or Germany. I actually noticed that we had some German backers that were backing this first thing. And I was like, really? Wow, great. Because I'm just so thrilled, y'all. The German and Dutch settlers to the area are some of the roots for all of these people, you know. So, anyways, I'm just thrilled. I just can't wait. And the progress that we've had today, so many backers, people talking about it online, unlocking all those stretch goals. That's all stuff I want to play with. So keep it up, please.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. I mean, just thank you so much, and Tracy and Jess and Tim, y'all have done just an amazing job. Thank you, and don't underestimate the play testing, because that is so very necessary. You iron out the kinks, you find out what rules aren't working, what needs to be checked. You know, what mythology needs to be explained a little bit more, because some stuff you just take for granted. And then you need to explain it some more. So, you know, actually, that's a good question for both Jess and Tracy. What parts of the setting was new to you? Like, what had to be explained the most to you about Appalachia in general?
Well, for me, let's see. Like I knew a little bit going in because I had done quite a bit of research in grad school about Appalachia and the history of the labor conflicts there, and what, like, just the specifics of what the coal companies did, right? And so I knew a lot of that stuff, and by association of that research, I kind of had a feeling for what the people were like there, right? And that I sort of vibed with right away. Like I'm not from there. I'm not native to Appalachia, but I vibed with it right away. Partly because, and what I loved about it was that humanity. It was just built in. It's just dripping with it. People in dire circumstances who are trying to rise above them or do the best they can, and are not victims. I mean, they are victims, but they don't act like victims, right? They're there to do something. And what I had to have explained to me by Tim, a few things. There were some traditions that I didn't know about, that Tim wrote about, that I didn't quite understand. There were some, and like some really heartfelt and interesting, and some very dark and troubling, right? Some of that stuff we kept, some of it we didn't. And you know, there were we had a lot of thought about that stuff, but I mean, we just really wanted to make an accurate sort of representation of how this should feel, right? Without going into too crazy dark places. And so so yeah, that some of that stuff needed to be explained to me so that I could understand with some a little bit more information than I had before we start like making changes to stuff, right? And I deferred to Tim. I just said, "Hey, Tim, what do you think?" Like, I'm asking you questions. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just asking you questions. And what is important to your vision here? And given that this is important to your vision, how can we sort of massage this so that it fits within the game environment that we want to create? You know, uh, as Tim has said himself, it's not an accurate, full-on historical representation of Appalachia. That's not what this is about, and that's not what it's supposed to be. But the feel needs to be there. And we captured a lot of dripping feel all over the book, right? And in fact, Tim did a little too much that we ended up having to sort of dial back a little bit. Because we didn't need it. You know, it's all there. It's all there. But that's the kind of stuff I needed to have explained to me. I also wasn't super familiar with a lot of the folktale stuff, a lot of the legends that come out of that region. You know, that it's so unique. It's so distinctly that region that there were some things that I was completely unfamiliar with. So it's when you read it, and I'm rambling on too much, I'm sure, but when you read it, you'll see there's a lot of folktale tale telling in the writing. And we left that deliberately in because we wanted you to get a feel of what this setting is without burdening you with it, right? I mean, that was the balance that we were trying to create, is we don't want to have too much that you're just like your eyes glazed over and you don't care anymore. But it's really important that you understand what this place feels like, because there is no place like it. There is nothing like this out there. There just isn't. And so we wanted to make sure that we had those tale tellings and all that stuff happening, and we left it in, So that was me. Jess?
What was the question again? What was new? I think everything was new for me. I'm a West Coast gal. I'm from California. My family, many generations ago, is from like Oklahoma, but I don't think that's quite far east enough. So it was all new to me. So like the overseas players, I mean, you can have fun in this setting. You'll learn in this setting. It's not going to hinder you. Tim, Tracy, Daryl knew some stuff too. You guys all taught me. It's just great stuff. I mean, I didn't feel hindered at all. I jumped right on board and was like, all right, let's do this. I may have gone a little too gritty in my version of my Gouger, but in the end, she had a lot of character growth. But yeah, it was all new to me. So, but it works. You're not gonna feel like, oh, I don't get this or I can't figure this out. I think one game session and you're gonna get like a feel of everything. I don't think you're gonna feel hindered at all. And by like third or fourth session, you're going to be like all in. You're going to call me by my player name from now on. I'm no longer Jess. I live in Appalachia now. So you'll get it. And for me, I didn't know anything. So.
Tim, well, hello, Shane.
Hi, guys.
Well, so now that Shane's joined us, so I think one of the major awesome parts about this product line, this campaign, this concept, this idea, this game, is how authentic it really is. Even with all the access of freedom that you give us, Tracy and Tim, with the kind of the mythology and the fae and the fantastical parts, right? There's a lot of, I mean, you could just tell it's very authentic. This isn't a drive-by representation of this area. I mean, it's it's an important area, right? I mean, like Appalachia is probably the center of American folklore, right? I mean, it is the first wilderness, and then kind of the first, the core of what American versus European and et cetera kind of folklore is. So, I mean, we're getting deep into American identity and American storytelling and fantasy with this. And I mean, there've been meetings where I think I've been like between Tim and Jody and Shane. Shane's got the Harlan County, and some of our fans are the Harlan County, right? And Jody and Tim are literally in Appalachia right now. I've been like the only Yankee in the room. So I before we get into some, see what Shane thinks about all this, I do want to pester you guys with our fun little segment of See and Say. Tim, I mean, I say this word Appalachian
incorrectly.
How does one say this
incorrectly? And the reason you say it incorrectly, Chris, is because your beard isn't long enough. You see? Take out your comb. I think, yeah. And then, so I think something about the length of your beard skews you towards saying Appalachia. That's my theory. But it's Appalachian.
Okay, so that's good. So we got Appalachian. Okay. I would pronounce this word hollow.
I mean, I'm looking at the title. Sort of depends on my mood, or what kind of hollow I'm talking about. Hollow, holler, holler.
So it's kind of funny because if people where I grew up, people would say I live back in the holler. Okay, but between Blacksburg, Virginia, and Roanoke, Virginia, is Butt Hollow Road. BUTT, and we would call that Butt Hollow. We wouldn't call it Butt Holler, but I suppose the people who live there might say Butt Holler. If you are from Butt Hollow and you see this video, let us know how you say it.
And do send us a picture of your town sign, because I want that. Okay, so civilized normal people would pronounce this creek. How would a son or daughter of Appalachia pronounce this?
Even I know that one.
Jess, you can take it.
Down at the creek.
There we go.
There you go.
So I'm actually curious. This is just for you, Tim, because we've all weighed in. How does one?
That's a bestiary. It's not a goodiary. Bestiary. And the one we have in Holler is a bestiary. It's not goodiary, not mediocreiary. There we go.
Well, it is really good, but I would say bestiary because it's full of beasts.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, Tim is Team Simon on this one, and
Which
Tracy
automatically makes him wrong.
Poor Simon.
I usually pronounce it bestiary. Wrong as I may be, that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Jody's favorite. Tim, can we?
I don't, I didn't even know what this word meant till I was like 22 years old. I never heard it before, and I was like, noir, what's that? Noir is my best attempt. Noir.
That's good.
So we have a town nearby called Lenore, and it's got the LE in front of those words, and it's pronounced Lenore. And so I should just start calling everything Nor, and because it's Lenore. And yeah, and we did have somebody who called up Clint, and they were like, well, why can't I send this to you? It's just up the road at like whatever. And Clint was like, where? Because of course they were trying to pronounce it like the French, and that's just not how we pronounce it around here.
Okay, Jody, every Saturday night and Sunday morning on Turner Classic Movies is Noir Alley. Okay, watch that. You'll start.
What does the pirate say? No, wait. What's the opposite of old? New. And what does the pirate say? R.
Noir.
New R.
It's not noir. It's
Like
noir. Noir.
I give up.
One syllable. Noir.
I can't do it.
Wow.
Sorry, French. I'm so sorry. Everybody who speaks French, I'm so sorry.
Are you sure it's not no ear?
Yes.
I mean,
sure.
That's super
Yes.
fancy, Jess. That's
Yes,
Jess
taking it up
Wilkins.
another level of pretension there, I think.
yeah, exactly.
Really interested
Californians.
in sounds classic.
So this one is the company that pays all of our bills, and is the highlight, the summit of gaming, and yeah, that's Pinnacle. That's what that is. That's Pinnacle right there. And I'm not taking any other answers correct. Let's see, last two. So here in the West we might have vermin. What kind of creatures show up in the bestiary, Tim?
I mean, varmints, critters.
And everybody's favorite form of dumpling.
Not everybody's.
Oh, come on.
I mean, apple dumplings are a thing.
Oh, that's true. Dumplings just in general are pretty good. So but if you had a dumpling made from this tuber, what would you call them?
I mean, I'm going to say potato. I know folks who say tater. I know folks who say mater. Right?
Taters. Taters are delicious,
maters,
my precious, my precious. So Shane, question for you from the audience. Very first question we had in was: is it true that this setting was originally going to be an ACE setting? So maybe let us know how did you do the ETU treatment for this? How did this go from being a Tim's a brand new ACE to like, hey, maybe we should really do this up and make it a Pinnacle setting?
What a great question. So in my mind, there are 4 properties we've done this with so far. The very first was Necessary Evil that Clint came up with. The second was Sundered Skies that Dave Bluer came up with, although we wound up selling that back to Triple Aces once they broke off. The third was ETU, and the fourth now is Holler. And I guess, the first and foremost is I liked it. I thought it was awesome, personally. Second was I thought it had great potential, and I know that, when it's got the Pinnacle logo on it, it's a little easier to get into stores and go through distribution and that kind of stuff than another company. Even though we have a lot of great aces, but distribution and some of that stuff's pretty tricky. So I thought we could add something to it for Tim, and I think too that if you look at we had this concept years ago called the Wall of Wonder, and what we wanted, we never were able to quite do it physically, but you could go to a game store or a convention where we control the wall and we put up all of our books, right? And you see, wow, these guys do superheroes and they do Rifts and they do Deadlands and they do East Texas University, and show all the things that we can do with our system, right? And Holler is an extreme end of that, because if you look at Rifts on the one side, which is probably our most gonzo powerful setting, Holler, I mean, you'll be lucky if you come up with a shotgun and 3 shells. And it's really interesting and neat to me that we can handle all those things, and they're fun and they work well. So I think just having it as part of our lineup is really good and important for us as well. So number 1, I loved it. Number 2, I thought we could add to it. And number 3, it really fills out the Pinnacle line.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much does it. So Tim, Tim and Tracy, why don't you talk about that? Like how, I mean, back when this was just a jump start, right? I mean, like I think looked it up. Like I think you sent me the jump start like May of 2019. I think it's kind of when we were at. So I mean, it's been a little haul. I mean, what's it like seeing an idea come to fruition, and now it's on Kickstarter and it's funded and it's going to be in stores, and hundreds of people are going to play this that you haven't even met yet. I mean, what does that feel like? What's that? Give us a little insight onto on that process.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it's had sort of a charmed existence. I feel like I've been exceptionally lucky to be in this position. It's been amazing to see the evolution of it. And, I used to I'm a professor. I teach for the University of Mississippi. I've been a poet all of my adult life, what I dedicated most of my adult life to, written like 5 books. That's a very solitary endeavor, right? You're sitting alone at a desk, and the only other people who read poems are 12 other weird poets in the United States, right? So you're not going to have an audience, and you're not going to have a lot of collaboration. And I just got to a point in my existence where I wanted to do something else creatively. I played games when I was really young. I came back to it again, and with my writing experience, I started to think, well, maybe I can do something with this. But I wanted to work with other people. I wanted to collaborate. I wanted to share ideas. I wanted to put a vision out there and then see what other people thought. And working with Pinnacle has just been extraordinary in that respect. I feel like Tracy and I just are on the same level, same wavelength. I mean, just to like an extreme degree. Like we've developed a really close friendship working on this game. She's my primary GM. I GM for her some as well, and so we play together and like work together, and it's a lot of fun. And then with the Shane's experience in the industry and all the wonderful projects he's done, it's just an amazing group to work with. And then just stumbling upon an artist like Francesco, where he's Italian, and then I write up these overly elaborate art orders. They're probably
great art orders, is what they are.
More wordy than average art orders. Give them to Francesco. He gets this block of text, and then he gives me back like exactly what I wanted, except better in like 2 or 3 different ways, right? And that's just an awesome feeling. Like when you're sending out that energy, somebody's catching it, doing something magical with it, and tossing it back to you, and then it's your move. And so it's just a really fun way to work. And so it's just been amazing. And then I don't think it's a new IP. We had no idea how it would do today. Like, I think it's done exceptionally well, given the fact that like, who am I and what's Holler? And of course I have the backing of all you wonderful people, but it's just been incredible. And it's just really fulfilling and exciting. And I just want to get out to conventions when we can do that normally again, and play the game with people and meet players, and because that's a hugely fun part of all this, meeting the people who play.
Yeah, part of what makes Holler so neat to me is that it is exceptionally easy to run, because it is on that extreme end of you're not having to deal with frameworks or superpowers or all that other stuff. You're just a curious youth. You know, you're Percy Ray Bunch. You've got a horseshoe and a cap gun. Now, you can pick up something and hit somebody with it, and you're pretty good at that, but it's a low-powered setting. You are disadvantaged. And part of what makes that fun is you're playing such interesting characters. Like like I said, the book kind of drips with it. You can't help but sort of gravitate toward these idiosyncratic characters that really are very interesting to play. But also for a GM, it's super easy to pick up and just say, I'm going to create an adventure, and I don't need to do too much crazy stuff to challenge the players or to set these really crazy set piece combats up that are primary to my adventure. Right? It can be simple and still way fun, and that's what I love about it, is that it's evocative and yet very simple and approachable, both in terms of adventure design and creating things for you to do, and it comes with a full plot point campaign, but also in terms of giving you what you need to get that setting sort of in your blood so that you can play around with it. That's what I love about it. But as far as the answer to the question, and I don't want to overstate my involvement, but the thing about it, I'm so lucky that Shane asked me to do this, because working with Tim, and like Tim said, just growing that friendship with him while we were working on this, and watching how he responded to my ideas and really just ran with them, and it just feels like we're really on the same page, and that feels so good to me, because I've been really struggling trying to find my place in terms of how to present my viewpoint in gaming, right? And Holler gives me that place to go. It gives me that outlet to express how I like to play and run games. And if you watched the part 1 of Savior of Hollow Oak last night, we did that streaming. That's now on YouTube. You can watch it whenever. That adventure, particularly in the second part, is all me, right? But it's also Tim. And it's me working with what Tim gave me and putting it in the Tracy lens, and it just man, Holler's so flexible that I can do it my way and you can do it your way, and yet we can still all play Holler, right? I think that's what makes it so special.
I tell you too, Tracy, we're lucky to have you involved. Of course, you know how I feel about your work. One of the things, when I listed my 3 things why I wanted to bring Holler into the Pinnacle family, that I liked it. Box has a lot of drop down arrows below it of why I liked it. Right. One of the many reasons, I guess it's something I try to do, and I certainly enjoy it when I see others do it. Chris, you guys did this in Buccaneer too, but every place that Tim describes in the book, every critter or bad guy, you can just feel the ideas bursting at the seam. Yeah, there it is. That's a great book, by the way. Happy to plug it for you. We already had pirates, but
well, you were very generous and let us steal all the stuff that was no longer all the edges, so they're all in there. Thank you for that.
But when you read something like, when I first read the Jumpstart, the Quick Start for Holler, Jumpstart, you could just, the ideas were bursting out of it, right? It wasn't like, well, God, I don't know how I'd run this. I don't know what I'd do with it. It felt like a rich world that could go on for decades, which is what we like. That's where we've made our bones with Deadlands and some of that stuff. So when you find a person who can write, who can present it, who knows what they're talking about, and is an endless font of inspiration and creativity, then you're lucky to bring them into the family. So that's
and Tim's
one of the boxes under I like.
Tim said, "Oh, who am I? Why is this this game?" Tim, guys, he's a poet and a scholar. I mean, he couldn't come on the cruise last year because he got a fellowship overseas for being a scholar to go off and study in Europe at the time. So the dude's kind of amazing. He has anthologies of poetry. So give us a little hint, Tim. Like what do you cover in your poetry? What's your themes? What do you write about?
I write about Appalachia in my poems. That's what, particularly my last 3 books, I write about the place I'm from. I'm from a place called Rutherford County in western North Carolina. It's in the sort of a foothill county. In the northwestern part of the county, you get into the mountains with Chimney Rock and Lake Lure. But it's not coal country, but it was a place that was sort of dominated by the textile industry for 100 years. And so many of my friends and their families and some members of my family worked in the textile mills. My brother's worked in factories his entire adult life, still lives in Rutherford County, still works in an industrial setting. My father was a blue collar worker. And, you know, just seeing the thriving community that those textile mills created when they were there, and then what happened when they left, and what it did to the economy and the landscape and the sense of community. I've written about that extensively in my last couple of books. So I have similar concerns in my poetry as I do like in writing this game. It was a very natural evolution to go from one to the other.
Well, and Shane, your Harlan County connections run deep too, right?
Yes. So I'm not personally from Harlan. My dad's family is. And I think I've probably mentioned this before, but my family's related to Daniel Boone. And my best memory of ever going to Harlan County is one branch of our family there has one of his muskets. Now, I don't think there's any provenance to it. I don't know that it can be proven, but that's certainly what our family believes and has believed for since I was born. And I got to hold it in my hands, and that meant a lot to me. And there's something called the Hensley Settlement there, which I think is a historic park now. So that's where they come from. My mother's family is from Clintwood, Virginia, which is where I mostly grew up. So I lived until I was 10 years old in Ohio. I was very much a Yankee, and I love the Midwest. And then we moved to Clintwood, and I hated it. I couldn't understand a word anybody said. I didn't know what a pop was. There were all kinds of issues for me. But, as I grew up a little bit and embraced it, I understood the strength it was bringing me, right? I mean, the people there, especially like my grandparents, it's kind of interesting without going off onto a long tangent. The Depression hit everybody hard, right? In our grandparents, but maybe not so hard in the mountains because they were all so self-reliant anyway. They really are isolated back there. They grow their own foods. They raise their own animals, kill their own animals. And that's just part of life back there. And I think it hardens them and makes them fiercely independent. And, the terrain contributes to that. When it is so difficult to get from one place to another with any sort of load, especially in the older days, because the mountains are so steep and they're so wooded and so enclosed, it's a very different mentality than you have like where I live now in Arizona, where it's, huge wide open spaces and mostly flat. And I grew up not only on tales of, how my family survived the mines and all these terrible mining accidents and stuff, but some vicious feuds. You've heard of the Hatfields and McCoys. We had very similar incidents to that all over Dickinson County and where I'm from in Southwest Virginia. I'm blanking on his name. There's a popular folk figure back there. He's a real life guy. He's featured in Trail of the Lonesome Pine, the play. Do you know who that might be, Tim?
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name right now.
Yeah, but those are the kind of stories, that I grew up with there.
Devil Lance Hatfield.
Devil Lance Hatfield. There you go. Yeah. That was of the Hatfields and McCoy. So it's, those kinds of things were all over the place. And, there were a lot of creepy tales about the things that lived in the dark hollers of the hills too, that, mostly my cousins would come and tell me when I was little. Right. But it was great. And I like that I've lived so many different places and have so many different perspectives. I've lived in California. I've lived in the West. I've lived in the Midwest and, the deep hills of West Virginia. And I like the West best. I'm a wide open spaces kind of guy. But jumping back into Holler is definitely a little nostalgic for me. And I'm really loving it. And I think one of the things I like best about it is if you've ever watched films like Mate One or any sort of documentary or series about what life is like during the mining strikes and when the detectives would come and bust the heads of the miners and so forth. I mean, those were really rough times. And those kinds of themes are in this game, but not in a way that is so depressing and just kind of terrible, right? Those themes are here. It's a cogent and tangible evil in the big boys, and that's one of the things I love about what Tim has done. It gives you, you can shoot them, you can fight them without feeling guilty, right? It's not a real life neighbor you gotta beat over the head with a stick. And I think that escapism lets us remove ourselves just enough to really kind of think about it and get the feel of it without being, overwhelmed and depressed. And
dialing that in was really tricky, tricky.
And what came out of it, I think, is just magical. And it's interesting too, the effect that the art had on it, right? The original art was definitely more realistic and darker, and it was tough to move away from that, because that was Tim's original vision. It was attractive to all of us. But then we saw the Francesco art, and suddenly it was a whole different experience. But I felt like, and maybe this is a great thing to talk about, it captured the essence better than real life did in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it added an element that was more fun to game and more, certainly more viscerally appealing and inviting.
I think it also added that Fey mysticism to it. Like it not even outside of the direct representations of Fey, you can feel it in this art. And I think I think it's an important aspect of the Holler. And I don't know how much we've talked about the Fae being involved, but they're involved, and they have their own sort of agenda and their own sort of place in the Holler, and they're sort of unapproachable in a way, and yet that's part of the setting. But there's this magic that they have. There's this magic kind of everywhere, and I think that's what I love about the art, is it evokes that, while at the same time managing to make it feel like horror too. Like, this is not a pleasant place to be. We are fighting against this, and yet this is also a magical place to be. And I love that sort of contradiction, and I love that the art represents it so well.
There's a good question we've got. It's been there for a while. Let's answer it. There will be adventures, right? So Tim and Tracy, let us know. Like, there's an adventure generator in the book, right, to start with. But there's also already coming with the GM screen comes with a 32-pager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the adventure generators, I just want to say, they're amazing. Amazing. Like, Tim put so much work into these generators. He's got a folks generator where you've got like 100 different first names and 100 didn't, or is it 50 and 50? I think it's 100 and 100. 100 different first names for male and for female, and then 100 different last names, surnames. You've got double name generators. You've got the whole thing. And then he's got like generators for the specific locations, like things that you might encounter there, and adventure generator hooks that include everything from I'll let Tim talk about it, but it's an amazing generator chapter, and then we have a full plot point campaign, and I'll let Tim take over.
Yeah, the generators, the adventure generator starts with, like, you can do, I forget the name that I called it, but basically insurrection, like when you're fighting against the big boys. The uprising adventure generator, right? And it sort of sets you in that human conflict, the labor conflict. Or there's the critters generator, and it puts you more in that magical, mystical world with the haints and the cryptids and the demons. And
it's sort of more of a critter adventure generator, not a critter generator itself.
Right, critter adventure generator. Uprising adventure generator. So a couple of different kinds of adventures.
Character study.
There's a character study generator.
Yeah.
Where you can, like, basically invent, like, crises for the characters, right? And I've used the adventure generator some to generate, like, one of the plot point campaign chapters. There's a 10 chapter or 10 act plot point campaign. We have some Savage Tales in the book as well. We'll see how the book gets to see how many there are in there. But we have Savage Tales, we have Plot Point, and then the generators. And there was a couple of generators that we cut. Like, I had that may show up somewhere down the line, but generating different infamous mountains, mysterious waters. Like, I love generators, and so yeah, we have robust generators, I think.
Oh yes, and then the plot point campaign, the major theme of it is that you're building a coalition to fight the big boys, and to sort of oust them as best you can from the Holler. That's the goal. Now the results, that depends, but it's like a very interesting plot point campaign that is about coalition building. It's about starting from nothing and building something. And to me, that's one of the best ways to do that kind of thing. Like, it really spoke to me, and I loved it. I love it. And we use subsystems all over the place, and all these things are sort of incorporated into this plot point campaign.
Mm-hmm. And you have to make some ethical decisions along the way. Like, they would be really valuable allies, but do we want to be associated with them? Will they stab us in the back when the time comes? I'm not sure if we can trust these people, but we need something they have, or we need, their martial prowess. And so the coalition can be sort of fraught by the end, which is a really interesting aspect, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a question / comment for discussion. So one of the things that features very heavily in the book is gouging contests.
Yes.
And I don't think people know enough about that. So I'd love to hear Tim and especially Jess talk about gouging in Holler.
Yeah,
what it is, what it's about, why is it fun?
Jess is the master gouger, no question. Like, she was playing a character named Minnie Mae Fugate, who Minnie Mae's about 5 feet nothing, 95 pounds, but just scrappy as she can be. There's Minnie Mae.
Mm-hmm.
And so gouging, I sort of jumped back into, we're mostly 1920s, 1930s, but if I needed to, I jumped ahead a little bit, or I jumped back in time a little bit to pull in elements that I wanted. So gouging fights, also called rough and tumble fighting, were a way to settle disputes when America was still really rural and there might not be a sheriff or any form of legal authority. And so you just worked it out amongst yourselves. And in these gouging fights, there were generally bare-knuckled fights. There could be boxing, but it was sort of anything goes, right? And sort of the prime accomplishment of a gouging fight, and this is where it gets its name, is to gouge an eyeball from your opponent, right? And we have some of our gougers who have like strings of desiccated eyeballs to show off as trophies and these sorts of things. So these are some of the grim aspects to go along with the mysticism and the wonder. We have both. And Jess played this character, just picked it up and ran with it and did an exceptional job. So she can talk about her experiences with it.
Well, we were kind of not sure how gouging was going to work in the very beginning, so it was kind of like, all right, just go with it. And so I think at some point I took an eye, I took an ear, took someone's nose or something like that. And this was just our way of, like earlier Jody said, you just kind of find a way, right? This was our way of finding things. We ended up getting our car because I ended up like beating up this huge dude and like winning all this stuff. We ended up getting our golden chicken, which we haven't mentioned yet, and I'm ashamed. We ended up getting a pet chicken that we took through with us through the whole campaign. We originally had 2 and we ate one of them right away. And then the second one became our pet. But it was just I just ran with it. It's like, just make it a thing. I think I threw dirt in someone's eye at some point and just fight dirty. And part of it too, a lot is like betting. You bet on it, right? And it's kind of like a showy thing. It can also be like, oh, you're putting on a show, come down and bet on this. And nobody bets on the 99-pound girl. So we would just take off this huge haul of like all this stuff. And I don't know, I'm just rambling, but for me, it wasn't mechanical yet. It was all just, how would you do this? How would this work for you? And I'm like, well, got some ideas for you.
Well,
and I did end up with a string of, I think, all of my trophies at the very end. And I had to fight myself at one point, like some version of me. And I took a piece of myself at some point. So it was crazy. It was really cool.
I mean, I can go into a little bit. I want to like tease a little bit of the gouging stuff. So we have formalized it into rules now. And the first So we have 3 rounds, right? One round, the first round is the calling out. So Tim, describe the calling out.
The calling out is sort of you can draw a line forward to professional wrestling, right? The calling out is when you're insulting your opponent, you're sort of building yourself up, and it's all based on sort of like rhetoric and put downs and just really whipping everybody into a frenzy. And this is also an aspect of Irish Traveler culture. Like Tyson Fury, who's the heavyweight champion of the world, comes from this culture, but Irish Traveler culture settles disputes in this way as well. And they make actual like VHS videos and YouTube videos and send them to each other, right? So this is a more like localized lo-fi version of it, where you're just standing out in this circle in the woods, facing your opponent across the way, and then you challenge them.
And you challenge them, you're calling
sort of
them out,
lavish,
right?
rhetorical.
Exactly. And then the second round, the sizing up, where you're sizing each other up and finding weaknesses and doing all that stuff. And this is all mechanically set. We haven't finalized it yet, but this is the general sort of trajectory, right? Calling out, the sizing up, and then we have the fight itself. And once you get to the fight itself, it's just 2 gougers going at it mano-y-mano, right? And there are particular things that happen and can happen in a gouging fight that, it's a risk. It's a risk to get into a gouging fight. And that's why we wanted it to feel that way. We wanted to see, like, if Minnie May is a gouger, that sort of commands a bit of respect. Like, she might be 5'0" and 99 pounds, but watch out.
I have to think that historically they really regretted it calling them gouging contests, and maybe wish they had just called them hair pulling contests, or make the other guy cry contests or something. Because once you're locked in,
you're locked in.
Right, that's true. I sort of liken it, if everybody have seen the Deadwood TV show, there's a particular fight in the Deadwood TV show that is, to me, the what I modeled gouging after when I was sort of finalizing the rules. And I love it. It's brutal. It's
so
hard. It's rough. And that was what the feel of it that we wanted, right? But at the same time, we wanted it to be gameable and fun.
Yeah. And we have a little gouging table with some results that are quite intense. So the gouging table, and my other favorite little table we have, and it's just used for one like plot point adventure. You could drop it into any other adventure you wanted to, but the industrial accident.
Oh yeah, that's so great. It's
fun stuff.
Yeah, fun stuff.
I just hate Tracy right now for bringing up Deadwood, and I can't do any of my favorite quotes from that show on the stream. Oh God.
I apologize.
Yeah.
There's just
Poor guy.
So in the chat, Halloween hype. So anyone who's watching, you guys, you can back us on Kickstarter, right? That's the big thing we're here today. We are funded. It is live. There are 300 backers. We're about to get into the 40K stretch goal, which we'll go over in a second. But you can join us at the end of the month. Halloween. We last year, Halloween was the biggest Savage Worlds event in the country, which I think makes it the biggest Savage Worlds event in the world, and thus the universe and thus the galaxy, or other way around. Anyways, Halloween 2 this year, over Halloween weekend, we're going to be doing another virtual convention. It's entirely free, and you can play in Holler games. Tracy and Tim and Shane are all running Holler games. And all the other Savage World settings are welcome to be run there too. So if you're a game master, game submissions are open. And I think we opened the game tickets on Tuesday, and by today, like 60 to 75% of the games are already sold out. So we need about twice as many games as we already have, folks. So game masters out there, come run your game for us. And players, we'll pop a link in the chat. But the Halloween, it's on tabletop events. Halloween 2 is going on. So yeah, you can come in and play in those games.
All absolutely free.
Yes.
Yes. The best part. And you don't even have to back to Kickstarter. Anyone's welcome. I think you guys have kind of covered this question, but we have a Facebook user who's from Europe and says they don't really have the background about the region. How much of that information will be in the book so people can kind of, tap into that?
We don't expressly lay out this is Appalachian landscape, culture, history. I think because there are so many stories in the book. There's so many characters. We also have a section on folk customs, some of which are based on real Appalachian folk customs and then sort of exaggerated a bit to make it gameable and fun, right? Some are just ones I made up that seem like, yeah, they could do that in Kentucky. That seems about right. They might do that. And so I think you get enough of the cultural flavor through the characters, the stories, the trappings, that you don't even have to have that history. If you wanted to get that history, you could.
I think it's way more immersive than you're maybe giving it credit for. It's, okay. I mean, the archetypes alone tell you so much about the setting. But I think the Gazetteer is amazing. It's not only is it great to read, but it's pretty thorough. I mean, there's a lot of different places to go and things to do. I think your section on the customs and so forth was fantastic. But you are correct that I think you show by doing, which is great, right? Mm-hmm. So the adventures and the kinds of adventures you go on are so informative as to what goes on back there and what's happening, especially in your version, this pocket dimension of mythical Appalachia.
Yeah, we deliberately did not want to do a big history kind of thing, right? It would have been interesting, like, and Tim's writing is so evocative that it would be very interesting to read. But like Shane says, learn by doing. Like, this is a game, not a history book. And I think that's important. Like, we want to have fun with this and learn by doing. And by reading the book the way we've got it sort of laid out, I think you do learn by doing. I think that's how it's done.
Right, and John Doom will give you permission to mangle the accents. It's a game. Everyone's here for fun, and it's mythical. So you're good. You're not going to offend anybody by trying your best.
Tim has a great sidebar where he gives you some pointers on the accent, but also gives you permission to mangle the accent.
It's written. So it is written.
It is written in the book.
I mean, I don't know if I have that authority, but that's the first thing I say to my players at a convention. Is like, it's okay. We're here to have fun, right?
What we don't want is to sort of stereotypize the people, or to how do you say it? Like, what we don't want to do is take these Appalachian people and put them in a box, or say they're something that they aren't. We want to have full breadth of experience, right? There's all kinds of different people with all kinds of different attitudes, and it's kind of beautiful,
No, the region's very diverse. Folks are as three-dimensional, and fully represent the breadth of humanity as anywhere else. I teach Appalachian literature, and one of the things that I hear early on from my students is like, and this is grim. Why don't these people just move? Like, can't they just leave? Is it okay? And then we start to read the stories, and I'm like, well, y'all think about this. We're reading about folks in Appalachia, but don't these same things happen like all over America in families? And there's these same sorts of tensions and conflicts. There's just a different cultural sort of bracketing around it. And
that's right.
And then they by the end, they're like, oh yeah.
There's that famous picture of the woman, and I'm pretty sure it might have been Oklahoma, but it's somewhere in the Midwest to West, that had to sell her children. Remember that? It's usually associated with like the John Steinbeck Grapes of Wrath era.
Right.
But it's a tragic picture, but it's a beautiful young mother sitting on a porch in coveralls. I could probably find it with 5 minutes of Googling. But that image to me, even though it's Midwest to West, always felt very 20s, 30s Appalachian to me as well. Mm-hmm. It's just, this is the same. She's sitting in a log cabin or a shack, really, and it's just that crushing poverty. That's the theme that is international for any place. The California harvest pickers during the Dust Bowl, or you can name 1,000 others, but it's add to that a magical aspect and then monsters, and you can see exactly what kind of threats your heroes are going to be up against. That's great. I like difficult settings. Somebody was talking today about dark settings, and I think it was Christian Omne, and it was important to differentiate them from cynical settings. This is not a cynical setting. This is a setting, it's all about hope, right? You've got to fight against these overwhelming odds and triumph against it. And I think that's what makes a great RPG world to me.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this, I think last Halloween, I mentioned this picture that I knew about. I can't find it now, but I used to have it as part of because I did the Kentucky Cycle, which is a play, it's a 6-hour, 2-part play about the Appalachian region and the mining companies and all that stuff. But there's this picture that I found in my research. There's this guy, he's old, he's wrinkled, and he's in the foreground. In the background, you see his house. And it's just sitting there, his house. It'd be fine, except that all around his house and the landscape that you see behind him has been strip mined. And the caption basically said, this guy sold his mineral rights and nothing else. That's Appalachia in the 1920s to me. And that's what attracted me to this setting right away, is that I knew that picture and I could see it. Let's make this gameable in a fun way. Right, it's amazing what Tim has done.
I had the privilege, of growing up in very close proximity to my grandparents, and all 4 of my grandparents were born between 1900 and 1910. So, they went through the Depression, when they were young, and it affected the way they viewed the world. And my grandparents, particularly on my mother's side, spoke this very distinctive Appalachian dialect. And, I wish I had recordings of my grandmother Harris talking, because it was amazing. She would say things even when I was 15 years old, she would say things I'd never heard her say before. And just we would just laugh and giggle and think it was, amazing and funny. But that sort of consciousness of having lived through the Depression and how that affects your worldview and how you move through the world, I think that's something that was ingrained in me from the time I was very young. My grandparents were like a second set of parents to me. And so I had this older sort of sensibility and way of talking, way of thinking, just as a part of my, experience early on. And I think that contributed to my fascination bordering on obsession with the culture and the dialect and the history of it.
Yeah, and we wanted to respect it.
Yeah.
That was the important thing is to say these things are awful and they happened, and it's not that we want to make light of it. We want to respect it.
But you can definitely do the accent.
Yes. Please,
yes.
Please do the accent.
You can try, and if I can try to do a British accent or, God forbid, a French one, and fall flat on my face, then you by all means can do an Appalachian accent and fall flat on your face. It's okay.
And there's a lot of different ones. People from different counties in Western North Carolina sound different from each other. One of my favorite anecdotes, this is in a little documentary called Mountain Talk, which I think Chris has watched. Simon, yeah. I got a pretty good Scottish
Back to
accent.
the mines, Welshman. Back to the mines.
He does. Tim does have a pretty good Scottish accent.
But Thomas Rain Crow, a poet, was talking about how people at the top end of the creek talked really, really fast, and people at the bottom of this particular creek talked really, really slow. So if somebody was telling you a story at the top end of the creek, you're having trouble catching the details. At the bottom end, you're just sitting there for 3 hours waiting for them to tell you what actually happened. Well,
oh yeah, and that documentary is great. I mean, there's some words in there like Cy-Goglin. What's Cy-Goglin, Tim? Is that one you can?
Cy-Goglin, different ways to pronounce it. It's something that is just leaning. It is neither plumb, level, nor square, right? It could be like an outhouse. It could be a barn. It could be a post. And then if you have something that becomes so Cy-Goggled that it falls over and sort of rots away and there's just a single post sticking out of the ground, then you have a stob, right? And the stob gets too ugly. If you get tired of looking at it, you can just get a bag, which is called a poke, and cover it up. You don't have to look at it no more. Right?
And if it's too bad, it's gommed up. Gum?
Well, yeah, that can happen to your engine if your oil gets too
okay.
thick. Your engine can get gummed up.
Or the industrial equipment, they get gummed up a lot.
They get gummed up a lot, and then you get some time off if it gets too gummed up. You don't have to work for an hour while they de-gum it. You know?
Well, but then they're not paying you.
That's true.
I mean, so I mean, to me, that's the cool thing. So again, like, you know, total. I mean, are Coloradans Yankees? I mean, we're technically not even part of the country at that point. But regardless, for the user who asked about, you know, how much was going to be in the book. I mean, the nice thing about the book is it's the. Maybe you guys want to talk about a little bit about like what the veil is and what, you know. This isn't on a map, right? I mean, we're giving you a map of the Holler, but it's not. This isn't set, you know, in the U.S. and all that kind of stuff. There's an access of freedom there for you to make it your own, to not have to worry about, you know, what exact date and month this is and world politics. We've removed that, right? Like this is very playable to people who haven't experienced it because it's also a fantasy. I mean, it is, the themes are there, the elements have been taken in, but you know, you get to make your own fairy tale story out of it. So explain that, like what is the veil and how does that work?
Well, the Holler has been sealed off from the rest of the world by the big boys. There's some conjecture about exactly what happened in that sort of cosmological event that made the Holler its own separate space. Some Holler folks blame demons. You know, there's different theories. There's some prophecy involved, but so Holler folks can't leave. You can't leave. And part of that comes from that question my students would ask me when they'd read these: why don't these folks just leave? So, well, maybe they can't because they don't have economic resources to leave, or maybe they don't want to leave their sick mother, or maybe they just feel so tied to that place and its home that they can't conceive of leaving. So I just going to take away the option of leaving altogether, because I think having that more claustrophobic space increases the stakes of the gameplay, right? And it forces you into conflict, right? There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, there's no outside sources of help to go.
You know what else it does, Tim? You know, where we're from in those small towns, everybody knows everybody, right? Yeah. Now, Holler's bigger than that. I mean, there are other towns within Holler, so that's not really true. But it does kind of artificially reinforce that. You know, when you play spend a penny to say, hey, I might know a guy, or use your connections edge or something. Yeah, I think you've probably been to this town in your life, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing too, because it's nice to have friends where you go, but it's also bad to have enemies where you go.
Right. Yeah. Like often there's been a couple of instances where, you know, the players meet a solitary traveling granny woman on the road and they're talking. It's like, oh, I delivered you. I remember it. Right. And there's like the social networks are sort of enmeshed like that. So I think that's the cool thing about it. The bad thing about it for the Holler residents is the big boys can come and go at will, and they can move in resources at will. They figure out a way to do this. Holler folks don't know how they do it. Maybe something you can discover through play. But it creates interesting things with the economy too, because industrious Holler residents can, you know, raid requisition yards and smuggle things in from, you know, if you have a Kramer Holt agent who wants some good shine, he might bring something in from the city to give to a moonshiner. And so it allows the economy to open up, the bartering economy, and to find some interesting things that you wouldn't find in like a hermetically sealed space, maybe.
Yeah, part of the discovery of starting with such impoverished and disadvantaged characters is that you've got to create your own advantage. And part of that is finding weapons that the big boys have, like the guns that they carry that you don't necessarily have access to, right? Or making deals like that with other Holler residents or with even some company men or big boys themselves somehow. Finding those resources is part of the game. And it's part of the fun of the game to me. It doesn't become, I'm going to go shopping with all my money. It becomes, I'm going to pick up that shotgun that's got 2 shells in it. Now I've got to be careful about when I use this shotgun, but at least I've got it now. And that's interesting, right? That's part of gameplay.
How many wounds did you cause? Oh, sorry, just let you say. How many wounds did you cause on the cruise, Shane, with a bear? Didn't a bear pretty much almost TPK every game of Holler you ran on the cruise?
Well, I only ran the one, but
Okay.
yes, it did. It should have been a TPK. Now, to be fair, one guy decided he was just going to take the truck and leave. They borrowed a truck.
Wow.
And then another guy jumped in the back to get away with him, and they just left two of the other player characters lying there dying, and a third wandering about the wilderness trying to figure out what to do. It was a nightmare. It was a bit of a challenge as a game master, let me tell you.
So yeah, Jess, back to you. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was gonna say at one point I got brass knuckles off of somebody. I don't know if it mechanically helped me, but by God, I wore them. And another really cool thing about how it's like small is that as we went on, like we kind of became more famous and well known. So like keeping things away from the big boys, like eventually they found out like we were there and we were doing things and we were causing problems, and like the more you go on, the bigger that becomes. So at some point, like they're going to know who you are and you're going to have some type of interaction with them. So I remember that being a big deal. We kind of got so famous that it was like, all right, like we can't go much further and we're going to have some type of big battle or something is going to happen because they know we're here and we're messing with their structure and everything that they're trying to do. So I remember that being like a really cool part of it because we just became famous like everywhere we went. Well, I did, especially because I beat everybody's butt. Earlier, Tracy was saying like you kind of earn that respect as a gouger. At first, everyone picks on Minnie May, kind of pushes her around like, who's this girl with this big mouth? And like by the end of the gouger fight, I'm like parting the seas as I go through crowds and stuff. So that can be good, but that can also come back to bite you in such a tight space. So.
Well, and that's why we had to include you in the art. I mean, it's like the character art is Jess impersonate. So,
well, I remember she looked kind of older, and I was like, no, she's got to be like a spunky young girl. She's got to be younger. So, like, we made her really young, and I think that's part of her is that she has a big mouth. She gets herself into trouble, and she fights her way out of it. That's just kind of her way. So. Yeah. That's just my little add-on there of how that came out in our gameplay. So.
Yeah, you sort of become folk heroes as you go, and you can enhance your own legend as this tactical thing that you do, and it can come back to bite you. Like the minor archetype is sort of like our minor version of the John Henry myth, in my opinion. That's sort of like the look and the legend that he's modeled on. The Tinker has a bit of Rosie the Riveter look to her. You know, I talked about how the Curious Youth is sort of based on the Jack character from the Jack Tales. So we sort of have like lines drawn between some of the archetypes and pre-existing folk heroes. But you can create, your own version of that. I see John Doom's question, do Pinkertons ever show up around the Holler? So there were detectives called Baldwin Felts detectives, the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency that co-operators called in. They were very much like Pinkerton agents. And we have our version called Kramer Holt agents, the Kramer Holt Detective Agency. And these are really nasty bruisers who tote around Tommy guns and intimidate the local populace. So Kramer Holt agents are pretty fierce. Company guards are just regular Holler people who've been given a gun and have agreed to work for the big boys. So they can be turned a little more easily sometimes. Kramer Holt agents, they're rough.
They're rough customers.
Worse than bears, I think.
Well, that bear is pretty scary. Pretty scary. Like I said, the bestiary, as I call it, is no joke in the Holler.
I think I'll try to throw a piece of the art here. We got, will Kentucky long rifles be in the book? And we got one of the archetypes is carrying I don't know whether it's exactly the right long rifle, but I'll throw up some art while we're talking and to give people some insight. But they says, Sir Quit commented real early. We got as long as we're here. Congratulate Sarah. The Sir Quit is let's see, where's her comment? Wait to me. Here we go. ETU Sir Quit. That's Sarah Martinez. And so if you guys don't know, Sarah Martinez is going to help join us with customer service. So cool. Joining the team with Christine and cool. Another Colorado connection. The Coloradans are invading Pinnacle. I'm just putting that out there. Just saying. We're going to have like the Arizona versus Colorado here pretty quick. So congratulations for joining the team, Sarah. Welcome aboard. And so let's go through. You guys have already unlocked a bunch of the stretch goals. I'd be remiss if we didn't tell you all the wonderful things that you're already at. But there's over 300 backers already. We are closing. We've surpassed 35,000. We're on the way to 40. So yeah, we better hurry up and talk about the stretch goals before we unlock more of them. Because Simon is in the background furiously putting up new images to let you guys know what the stretch goals are. But very first one, this is, some people were looking at like, okay, I don't know about the sticker price on the digital. So the do-it-yourself virtual tabletop assets, first thing we unlocked for you guys. So that is already unlocked. Those are a great way for you guys. You get all of the stuff that you can create and port into your own VTT. And that's a pretty big bundle here. I mean, we've got maps, we've got, figures. So, the action deck as well. So the archetypes. So there's a lot of good material you guys are getting right off the bat on the virtual tabletop for that, the bigger digital package. You guys have already unlocked the bookmarks. Those are some sharing off some of the very pretty art we've got. The Ashdown map, very exciting. It's a 11 by 17 or 17 by 11. Either way, it's one of the towns within the Holler of Ashdown, and this will be something that's. I think we're trying to do kind of the isometric for this, Shane. Isn't that right on the art order? We did a really great piece for Deadwood in the Deadlands series, and that map came in really handy during our Deadwood expedition this year, a couple months back, where we celebrated the 25th anniversary of Deadlands. We had a great time, but that map came in handy. I think you and Don and I don't know if Jody used it or not, but a bunch of people use that really kind of cool isometric map. And it's not so much to put minis on, but it's really to give you flavor for what these towns look like. And, so when you're in the town, you can kind of visit it. So yeah, there we go. We got Shane on the map. Let's see if we can't make you a little bit bigger. Let's see. Could you solo?
Oh, nice.
This is the Deadwood map, as Chris said.
That's
Sorry
awesome.
for the glare. And the Ashdown map will be, wow, my spatial awareness is poor.
It's not easy to do that.
But that's the style it will be in. Tim turned in a fantastic art order for it, and it's just taking some time to do. One of the problems we're having right now is because our art orders are so much more developed than I used to do, which is great. We get better art for it, but they take a little longer. So, we are definitely butting up against overwhelming Sigil, who handles all of our art needs. And Aaron, as always, and Alita are doing an amazing job doing it, but we are overwhelming them. That's what has delayed that and some other things, as I've mentioned before, supers. But there are a few things in Holler that I really wish we'd had for the Kickstarter, like the tactical maps that we're going to give you. Like the Speakeasy is going to have a gouger circle outside of it. Even the mountain road, I wind up using those all the time because I'm kind of big on ambushing players on roads.
Shane's a great GM, guys. Believe it.
I don't know about that, but I do like my ambushes.
Yes, you do.
Well, and that's the other thing too is we can't. I mean, this art style is so specific for this product. It's not like we can go to 12 different artists and say, hey, we've unlocked all these things. We've had to plan a little more ahead on this one because the team that can really recreate that style is a much smaller team than we normally access. So
yeah, and Francisco does a full-time comic book for Image too, right? So I mean, he's working his butt off, and the results are amazing. He's not phoning it in. There's no image we get that's like, well, he could have put a little more effort into that. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. And Simon chimed in from the chat early that the Tim's favorite character, the Curious Youth, got opened up as a stretch goal just now. Well, it was $5,000 ago, sir. We moved past that during the stream, but that is on the extra archetypes, and so you can kind of see him. He's there on the third one, but already the new archetypes have already been opened, which is fantastic. Those I really like the archetypes. Those cards, if you go to a convention game or have an expanded game or a sit down game, you could literally just sit down, put those on the table, and people pick them. And it's not 2 pages of text to read through and decide. I mean, there's evocative art. All the stats are on the front. They're just super handy. So I love that. Again, for the folks who aren't super enmeshed in what Appalachian culture is and what those themes are, we've done the work for you. It's on the cards, it's in the adventures, so you don't have to worry. You can run those.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris, because one of the things that we've been able to do in our last few projects, a lot of this has to do with Simon and the work that Jess does. Not only the pawns and the maps, but those archetype cards are just so invaluable, right? Because like Deadwood is a great example. I think everyone used them there. You can write out characters on character sheets and people can play them just fine. But having that art and a quote and it all put together and maybe a bit more of an orchestrated party is just so handy. And then especially, it allows you to do some things very easily, like John Goff's Night Train game, where people were going through characters left and right. And you can just, here's the stack, pick another, or draw one at random. So you are sometimes forced out of your comfort zone to play something different. And I think that's really exciting. And just all the cool stuff we're able to do now between our box sets and the cards and the pawns and the tactical maps especially adds so much to the experience at the game table for me that, before, where I might have my superhero WizKids hero clicks for Deadlands on a battle map that I drew with a pen. Now I get to put, here's the guy that matches your exact archetype card on the table. I've got a map to use of a town, and I still do the other stuff when I need it to, and it's fine. But it's so nice to have this stuff. That's one of the reasons we use Kickstarter and crowdfunding pages like this or Game On or our own new Game Changer stuff, because it lets us do all these extras that we probably couldn't afford if we were just releasing straight into the wild like we used to do.
Right. And that's the thing is, I mean, I got to pitch them. That's my job. The pawns, the fact that you can take the archetype cards, play it, and you don't have to paint a miniature. You can literally have a pawn that is got front art, back art, and it is your character that works with the maps. It's super handy because, literally it's out of the box. You can play it. I mean, that's how handy it is. I mean, grognards love buying miniatures and then not painting them. You'll never be embarrassed by not having your stuff painted here. They're literally, the pawns are out of the box. You pop them on the little bases that are included. Or this is another cool thing on our site. I literally just picked up packs of these. I'll pull them out here in a second. But the clear plastic bases for the pawns, we sell them on the site. Actually, I'm going to do that while the next time someone talks. But so the pawns themselves come with like the same cardboard. It's thicker than cardboard. It's ragboard. There's some Skyman will kill me for not getting this term correct, but it's a nice thick stock that these pawns are die cut from, and we give you little bases to hold them up on there. But if you like the clear plastic ones too, we also sell those, and they're nice and shiny. But the current new one, it's already unlocked. So we've already unlocked the extra archetypes, and then during the stream, we've unlocked the Mountain. Oh, geez, the book is. So here's another problem. The picture we've got for the book, it looks like a decently thin book. We need a new book mock-up because the book is already thicker. We've already gone from like 192 pages to 208, and there might be some future stretch goals which might bump that up even more. Tim's got the content, so if you guys keep backing this, we're going to need a bigger book. But the current one that got unlocked is the Mountain Horrors, 16 additional pages full of crazed critters, and there's some really cool art that we've shown you on that one. That one's already been unlocked, and you guys are steaming towards the 40K, which, speaking of the pawns, now that we've given you 16 more pages of critters, maybe you want the pawns too. So let me take this down. I'll let you guys talk for a second while I grab those. But Shane, actually tell us about like what the pawns are like and how that, and Jess too, because Jess works really intimately on how to make sure we give you the most number of pawns we can fit on these sheets. So yeah, if you guys talk about that.
Yeah, I'll tell them. I'll talk about using them as a game master, and then Jess, you can talk about making them. But the sheer convenience. Now, I still like to pull out a cool big miniature if I have it for focus feature monsters, stuff like that, because I have quite a few. But they work great with the pawns. having, like, I just saw you had the blood drive pawn sheet there, Chris. Having all those cows to put in the middle of a herd is just so nice and convenient. But I think too, a lot of times, I will use a creature that really nobody knows what it is as something else, not labeled or anything. So the variety is so convenient to me to just pop out and play, especially when it was super handy. Now we did this virtually, but it's the same concept. When we were running Horror at Headstone Hill, it's not a linear campaign, so I never knew where Jess and the other miscreants were going to go. So I had to have a lot of stuff ready, right? And being able to just pop those out and go was just incredible. Over to you, Jess.
Okay. Well, I have to give credit to Simon because he figured out how to create pawns, and this whole very lengthy process that I just fell in love with. He came up with it, and then he taught me, yes, there are some pawns. And our goal is to give you as many as we can, and to give you, if there's monsters that there's going to be more than one of, we want to give you more than one, so you have the resources you need. And we're working on also for some of the sets, trying to give like setting pieces, like trees with and like places somewhere where you might get hanged in Deadlands. You might want to give that to you guys, and campfires and stagecoaches and things like that. So we want to give you anything you might need at the table. And so my job is to get as many of those things on the page as we can and make sure that they look good, they're the right size, everything. Like if you're getting a size 7 creature, it's going to be a size 7 creature. It's not going to be the same size as a person. I love it because I get to see all of the art and, get intimate is a weird word that you used, Chris. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I get intimate with, what is the size of this creature? How many of them will there be? Is there a pack of these and things like that? So for Holler, we're working on getting more art, but we're definitely going to have the archetypes for you. So if you need the archetypes, they'll be there. And I think most creatures that are in the campaign we have, right? So you're going to have everything you need for the campaign, especially like some of the really big creatures and really important creatures are going to
I want to see the Piney King and Pond.
It's huge. I was working on that the other day, and yeah. Simon was asking me how many pages I think it's going to be, and I'm like, well, the Piney King is like half a page at least, so we'll see, because it's big. It doesn't fit on my little like sizing thing. It's huge. Yep. So, and when I first saw it, I was like, because there's pinies too, and I looked at like tiny little things. They're tiny, so I was like, this doesn't seem right, because the pinies, it says it's a -1, but he's holding a person. Oh, that's a Piney King. He's size 7. So, making sure all those things are right. And
I don't know if. Sorry, Jess, go ahead.
I was gonna say, for me, I'm like remembering. Oh yeah, I remember fighting that, and we did it virtual too, where we didn't have these pawns, and it's like, oh, that is super cool to be able to have that at the table.
I don't know if I guess most people don't know this about the manufacturing process, but Chris, can you hold up a sheet again?
Yeah.
What we decided to do early on with this, which is kind of crazy, get real close, Chris. Every one of these is die cut around its particular image or silhouette, its shape. And that's a big deal because that's very expensive per sheet. But we wanted to do it because we felt like not only is it cool and different, makes them stand out more, but it makes them much more useful on the actual tabletop. So with like figure flats, if you don't cut them out, or other pawns or something, if they all have the same shape, it's a little tricky when you've got a lot of things out, and our game always has a lot of things out, right? To figure out which is which on the battle map, you got to kind of get down and look and make sure that's your guy. But when they have a different shape like this, it's very easy. That's something we talk about a lot in video games. When I worked on those kinds of things, we want characters to have instantly recognizable silhouettes. And we did that with the figure flats, even though it costs us a lot more. And that's some of the things we just suck up the cost because we want them to be better, and we think it'll make a better experience for everybody. And what drives a lot of that stuff is we play with our stuff. We play our own game, and we want to use it. So we go the extra mile for us as well as you.
Yeah, and for the asthma people, there's a very satisfying sound for the little bit. But these are the clear plastic, bases. So the sheets themselves, again, you can see the little They're kind of like, I don't know, sandwich shaped, hot buns, like a loaf of bread shaped. Those are the so those will go on these where they'll go the opposite way. And then, but if you put the clear plastic bases on, they're round and circular, and they don't cover up the art. So if you really like feet, if you're a foot fetishist, you don't have to cover up feet with the other ponds. But they're really great. The fact that they're durable. I mean, they're very thick. I mean, this is deceiving because I don't know if you can tell because it's white on both sides, but they're decidedly thick. These aren't flimsy. You can play these at the table. You can throw them in your dice bag and not really worry about them getting destroyed. Or you can get one of those really cool little organizers. I know Hobby Lobby sells them where it's just like for like beads and other small crafts. And usually the sizes are pretty standard. They'll give you a couple bigger ones, but these will fit in there very nicely. And we liked. I mean, if you think about it, for us to bring like the big Piney King, if we did that as a miniature, it would cost you $125, and you're never going to paint it. But now you can see that. There we go. Shane is so handy with the props. Look at this. Right?
I also
Exactly.
just put the pawns back into the box they come in too, because I mean you can lay them flat back down, even if they shuffle around because you've punched them out and you throw away the extra cardboard bits. You've still got that box on your shelf, and they stay in there. So that's how I do it. That way I know what's in what's botched. But
and we had a Kickstarter question too, asking like, hey, can I get the book without the pawns, or the box set without the pawns? We give you the box, man. The box is so you have a box for the pawns too. So we can't take them out. They ship in there. That's where their home is. So you got to do it by add-ons otherwise. But that was a Kickstarter comment like, hey, I want the box but not the pawns. No, you do want the pawns. They're fantastic. They're great.
Another great thing is you don't have to paint them. They're already painted, because I have really bad eyes and I painted a couple miniatures and it was not for me. So you don't have to paint them. It's all, we're going for convenience here, where you can take as many of these as you need to a convention, and some people just don't have the time to paint miniatures. So that's a really good thing. And like Shane was saying, like, it's just so different when you have that on the table. When you have your Gouger next to your Piney King, you're gonna, this is a bigger deal than I thought it was. This is a big fight. Maybe I should take a few steps back. So it gives it more of a realistic feeling.
Maybe you should hoard your bennies, Jess.
Oh, I will.
Jess is the queen of Benny hoarding.
Yes, and I think
begging her to spend pennies.
Yes, yeah, and it's funny because whenever, I don't know if you missed this part, Shane, but my love interest was Ella May, and I remember I had like 8 bennies, but really poor persuasion, and I was trying to convince her to be interested in me, and I spent every single benny and still failed, and I was like, well, Shane would be happy about this.
Guess it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, you had to be friends without bennies.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't know.
Well done, sir.
You stepped right into that one, Jess.
In the end, she did stab me in the back. So
She did.
This is the problem. Like, we have to get Jess on all these streams. There's so many great stories from like your over a year of playtesting this that we all get to hear daily when you guys come back from the playtest. They're just like, what did Jess do in Holler today?
I have another one, like not from Jess, but one of the ones we're playtesting this whole seer thing and trying to decide how to implement that right finally. And Veronica Blessing was playing the seer, and she with this, we got a lot of mileage out of our little the first edge that we have for, which is a prophet, right? And so she can sort of prophesize things, and she gets things out of it. I don't want to go too into it because I don't know how the final will be, but the general gist of it is that she ended up turning Finster Goad's Whomping Chain into, like, they scared Finster Goad off, he was a foreman for one of the textile mills. So he drops his chain, and they end up burying the chain and turning it into this whole tale of Finster Goad's Whomping Chain, right? And it's buried in Ashdown right now. It's got a marker on it. But what's interesting about the Holler and this setting is that stuff like that becomes a tale. And the tales become legends, and the legends become true. So it's an opportunity for me as the GM of this particular playtest to bring that up later in the plot point campaign. Like, somebody dug up Finster's Whomping Chain, And now he's terrorizing blah, blah, blah place. And he's got powers because it's a legend, because it's become a tale that people tell. And that tale has made it into something much more than it was. And so the Holler, and this is what Tim's setting is so brilliant about, is that it lends itself to that kind of gameplay. Like things become real, tales become real, you know.
Yeah, and so we have a late joiner. Welcome, Jan Borowski. What is Holler? So yeah, guys, Holler is a brand new tabletop RPG from Pinnacle Entertainment for Savage Worlds. You do need the Savage Worlds core rules to play. So if you haven't picked those up yet and you want to back Holler, an add-on through the Kickstarter or after or before, however, we can do it a million ways. You can pick up the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition core rules, which is required to play. But it is a beautiful box set adventure. It is it's got elements of fantasy and the fae and fairy tales. It draws from American history of the Depression and Appalachian culture and history, but it is its own unique world that's a little isolated, so you can feel free to explore and have that freedom to do what you want with it. It is currently on Kickstarter. It is already funded. Over 300 people have already backed. Which is amazing. Thank you all. And we've unlocked all but 2 of the currently announced stretch goals. Let me finish that up before we get to some final questions and goodness. But it's on Kickstarter now. I'd be remiss not to let you guys, to plug that. But the final 2 stretch goals we've announced, and we're going to need some more. So Simon, get back to work. We're close to the extra pawns. You guys just unlocked 16 more pages. So the book has gone from 192 to 208. And those 16 extra pages are full of fun and interesting critters and adventure ideas. And so if you want the pawns for those, 40, and I'm pretty sure you guys do because you're almost there. And then hopefully the last one tonight, or at least before, we'll see you next on a stream later. The $50,000 stretch goal is that we've actually worked with our partners at Fantasy Grounds and Foundry and Roll20 and secured anyone who's a Kickstarter backer. So only during the campaign, you can't get this later, a pretty good discount, a sizable discount off the retail price. So normally the retail price for the Holler's rules module would be $40 at the various platforms, and you can get it as an add-on on the campaign if we unlock the stretch goal for $30. So that's a great discount, 25% off. So thank you guys for hopefully getting there soon. But that'll be at 50,000, and that'll include the core rule book, the tokens, the bennies, the archetypes, which you unlocked a bunch more earlier. So the archetypes, there will be more of those in the core. The maps, we've promised you guys a good number of maps already. The the combat map pack. There's 2 combat map packs, so those will be included. There's so much stuff in this box. And then the action deck. So yes, a customized action deck with all the gorgeous art we've already unlocked. So for day 1, you guys have been amazing. Let me zoom back up and see where we're at. Over 300 backers, over 35,000 already day 1, and we're only a couple hours in. It's been a ride already, guys. So, oh, there we go. See, customer sold, brand new. Didn't know what it was. We've already got sale. So,
See, now,
Nice job, Chris.
if that's the Joe Borowski that I know from North Carolina, and I'm thinking that it is, then this is right up his alley. And if that's you, Joe, I hope you'll comment again so we can see it. But yeah, that is totally up his alley. I remember selling him on Savage Worlds like the very first time he had ever even heard of us. And he loves to create like his own kind of scenarios. And he's even that particular Joe Borowski. He did a master's project where he took, yay, hi, Joe. I remember a lot of the people we talked to. So I can't remember everybody, but I do remember some. And Joe definitely made an impression. He took as part of his master's project to go into juvenile detention centers and to work with them playing role-playing games so that they could learn consequences for their actions. And in a setting like this where you feel like you have nothing to work for, like, we talked about just the devastating poverty and the labor disputes and all this kind of thing, but there's hope. There is a way to fight back. And there is a way for you to make a better life for yourself. And you might have to do it, kind of fighting and scrapping your whole way through, but you're going to be able to do it. And that hope element to keep away the cynicism. It's dark, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's right up your alley, Joe. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I had just a little last night I was talking to somebody that I had met at a convention once. I don't want to say who she is or anything, but she played in one of my games, and it was one of those sort of magic, okay, we're friends now moments. And I hadn't heard from her in a long time, and she saw that I was running this Hollow Oak thing, this actual play, the Savior of Hollow Oak for Holler, and that brought her attention to the point that we were doing Holler. And she's from the region as well, and she was really excited because she was like, we've been the people in my region are often demonized or treated badly by literature and properties and these kinds of things, and she felt like this might be different. And I actually, like, because I've cheated a little, and I was like, can I share with you something from the book? Can I share with you the sidebar that Tim wrote about his intent for what this is? And when I shared it with her, she was just this overjoyed and really excited to get into this setting. And so it seems like we're reaching people beyond our regular borders, and I think that's really cool. And it was part of Tim and I's intent to create a setting that is respectful and at the same time fun to play.
And I think that's our biggest worry here, is that we know there's something special. I mean, being able to see what Tim has created, it is so authentic. It's legit, right? Like, Shane's the real deal, and so is Tim. And this setting is the real deal. And I mean, I'm excited, having played a tiny part shepherding it to this day. We need your help, guys. If you're watching this stream, this is very unique. I mean, this does have the potential of really reaching folks. I mean, everyone who loves Deadlands this is instantly relatable to you. You will know this setting. You will know how to play it. It is a wonderful Savage Worlds product. But I think it also can reach, I mean, this is a niche that hasn't been filled in the market. There isn't anything else out there like this. I think the time has come for this game. So if you're watching this, guys, please help us get the word out on this amazing piece of art that Tracy and Tim and everybody else on screen, Jess and Jody and Shane and Simon, and everybody else has created for you. It's really, it's quality, but it's unique, right? I mean, there's enough here that we know the Savage Worlds and the Deadlands fans will love this. But I think it's bigger than that, and I think this can reach people we haven't reached before. So we don't, it's hard to reach those folks. So share it on your socials, tell your friends about it. Back us on the Kickstarter, and at the end, even for $1, to just keep track of the news, what are the updates, share this on, because I think it can go places. I mean, you guys have done amazing on the first day. With over 300 backers, that is fantastic. We stutter stepped on our launch. We thought we were going to be Tuesday, but it ended up coming out Thursday, and this is an amazing response for that. We were all kind of biting our nails on if that would hurt us or not. So thank you for showing up. But back to Kickstarter, share it with your friends. Let them know that this is a unique game out there. It is a lot of fun to play. I've gotten to play in it. I've done some of the play testing. I haven't gotten as much after Tracy's gotten her hands on it, but I really, reading the new manuscript, it's so good, guys. It really is. I mean, this isn't salesmanship. This is like deeply felt personal connection with what I know you guys are going to enjoy. So,
Landauer, we know you're just the ultimate fanboy.
I am the ultimate fanboy.
Thank goodness, because he championed Tim and brought it to our attention, right?
Right, and Tim didn't need much championing. I mean, the guy, he's legit, right? I mean, he's legit award-winning published poet. His poetry is gorgeous. So, man, can we have books of Tim's poetry? Too bad we didn't publish Tim's poems. It'd be so much easier to have them as add-ons. But we will let you guys know where you can read Tim's poetry. But there's other ways you can get involved. So you can back the Kickstarter. You can share it for us. Follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/PegInc. We will be doing more live streams. The best one is part 2 of Tracy's adventure. We ran the part 1 yesterday to kind of keep the momentum going. That is already up on YouTube. It's on the Twitch on demand video. So if you didn't catch that, you can check it out on Twitch and on YouTube. We will bring you part 2 probably next week. And let's see, follow us on Twitch, share. You can come and play this game, Halloween 2021. We're going to do a Savage Worlds online convention. You can come and play a bunch of Savage Worlds games. There are games of Holler being run by Shane and Tim and Tracy and Daryl. So guys,
Eric Lamoureux too.
Oh yes, Eric. Eric has gotten hold of the manuscript, and so I mean, super unique. Here's a big thank you to the Ace community. I mean, this is kind of the Ace community is what helped bring this here today. I mean, Tim started out as. I mean, had you played Savage Worlds before we met, Tim? I think you had, right?
Yeah, my first experience with Savage Worlds was at Genghis Khan, a convention in Denver, Colorado, in February of 2019. I played Flash Gordon with Scott Woodward, running the game, and then Daryl Hayhurst was sitting right beside me, like teaching me how to play and like cackling the whole time. So that was my introduction to Savage Worlds, and I just instantly fell in love with it and bought a bunch of settings right after.
Wait a minute, you played with Daryl and didn't run away from it?
My first experience was with Daryl, right?
And you got to play Flash with Scott. I mean,
yeah.
Right.
Which was amazing. It was so, and I just fell in love with that setting, and then every other setting I bought, and so I just dove in really quickly.
Yeah, no, it's so rewarding knowing that, like, over 10 years ago, Neil Hyde and Chris Fox fell in love with a little game called Savage Worlds and started a club, and then we did the conventions, and then people like you joined, and that your creation is now seeing the light of day. That is just so. I'm tickled pink that's a cool thing that exists. But yeah, guys, there's plenty of ways of you two could be the next amazing game publisher, get your own book out there. But until then, back us on the Kickstarter, share far and wide, guys. This is a work of art. It's more than just a game. It's pretty fantastic. Twitch.tv for Peg Inc. for our episode 2 of Tracy's actual play. We're going to be doing more of these interviews and live chats. I think we're going to rerun the original OG actual play, Baden Mountain Tunnel from a year ago, and you can do a compare and contrast on what Holler was a year ago to what it is today with between Tim running and Tracy running. Join us for Halloween. And other than that, I think we've got the questions currently answered. We're all a little bit tired because it was exhausting not starting a Kickstarter on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, and Simon is diligently working. Simon was going to be on stream to do a little more of the pawn showing and book dropping. That's my job today because you guys have run through the stretch goal. So we're going to give you an update tonight, but I think that'll be it from us. We'll do one update to thank you, and then I think tomorrow we'll start posting more stretch goals because I think by tomorrow you'll have gone through them all, guys. So. Thank you so much for backing this so incredibly much on the first day. Tim, congratulations. You're a champion. I'm so glad to see this coming. Tracy, brilliant job shepherding this from the nascent steps, the jumpstart steps we had a year ago to the amazing product it is today. Just bold choices, you guys, on changing art direction and expanding the scope. And I think they've all paid off. I think it's great. Everyone seems excited. The Kickstarter comments are fantastic, which, usually they're horrible. So the fact that people love this so much, thank you guys. And I think we're going to let you go under 2 hours. We will be back. And then, I got to put you on the spot, Jody. It's been requested that you give us a little of that Appalachian theme, plus your God-given and honed talents of singing, to sing us out with a little sample.
Sure. Sure. So, Wayfaring Stranger. It's a favorite of mine from the Appalachian folklore and songs. So I won't do the whole song, of course, and you can just fade out as you want. But here goes. I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world below. There is no sickness, toil, or danger in that bright world to which I go. I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going over home.
Oh, Jody, chills. So I can't top that. Congratulations, everybody, on a great first day on the Kickstarter. Amazing job, Jody and Tim and Tracy and Jess. Thank you so much for making Minnie May one of the best characters that will ever be played in this game.
Mhm.
And thanks, Shane, for taking a chance on Tim. So
Yeah.
thank you guys. We're out. Cheers.
Bye-bye.